Uh, hey guys, welcome to the channel. Yeah, I know. I don't know. The stupid bugs, man. The software bugs get me. Hey, welcome to RC Video Reviews. I just wanted to spend a few minutes tonight with you guys talking a little bit about RSSI and audio, or not audio. Audio is not the topic. It's RSSI. And the reason I wanted to spend the time with you is because I was on with the Edge developers, one of them, and I learned a lesson about EdgeTX that kind of blew me away. I had no idea. It was something new to me. It blew my socks off, and I've been using this radio and this setup for a long time. I had some inclination that there was a problem. So anyway, I did a little homework, and I did a little research, and I talked to the Edge guys, I talked to the Express LRS guys, and I wanted to share what I learned. So we're going to talk a little bit about RSSI. We're going to talk a little bit about link quality. We're most specifically going to talk about EdgeTX. I'm going to give you a couple of different ways to approach this, right? I'm going to give you a super simple way, so if you just want to do a basic configuration, go fly your plane, I'm going to make that happen for you, and it's going to be right. The next thing we're going to do is get into something a little more intermediate, and then we're going to do something advanced on the radio. Now, before I get into the material, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. And housekeeping involves, first off, regarding the text. A lot of text that you're going to see tonight, I just stole it. I took it directly off the Express LRS FAQ, and I paraphrased a little bit, and I also took information from places out there on the web. But I want to let you guys know that I didn't create this material. All right, Express LRS guys, the FAQ, their documentation, most of this came from them. You guys say I have two inputs going. You guys hear an echo or something? I don't see it, so hopefully not. I only see one. Anyway, okay, it looks like it's been retracted. So I know, Robert, one job. Freddie's not even hanging out. He's going to bed, but he still got first. So anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about the tech first. So I want to break down the tech because with Express LRS, there's different things happening. It's a little more complex than a lot of the other tech we have out there. And I wanted to break it down in a way that was easy to understand for you guys. And so you can understand what are you seeing and what does it mean? Okay. So we're going to start out. Oh, he had Discord video going too. Okay. So we're going to start out by talking a little bit about RSSI first. So RSSI, this is the traditional one that everybody I think is pretty familiar with because most different RF techs have RSSI. It stands for Received Signal Strength Indicator. It simply represents volume. So wherever you're watching this right now, you hear my voice, that's RSSI. That's the volume. The volume at which you hear me, that's RSSI. So it represents your signal volume. Now, the thing is that the RSSI, we're going to talk a little bit about sensitivity level, and don't worry, we're going to cover all these things. So if you're not familiar with what sensitivity level is, don't worry, we're going to cover it. But the RSSI has to be above the sensitivity level in order for the receiver to understand it. If it's not above it, then the receiver won't be able to understand. We'll be able to discern it from other radio noise. So in RF world, RSSI starts at 0 and goes down as the volume gets lower. In Express LRS, now here's another thing that's really important about RSSI is that there is no hard and fast rule on exactly how the scale works. Some manufacturers might say 0 to 60. Some might say 0 to 100. A lot agree on 100. Some might say something a little higher, or a little lower, like negative 130. For Express LRS, they have a negative 130 dBm hard limit. Okay. So most of the Express LRS packet rates that you'll see, and I have a chart that, again, I borrowed from the Express LRS website, most of their packet rates are near negative 100. Some are a little more, some are a little less, but a lot of them are near negative 100. I want you to remember that number for later, okay? Just remember it for later because we're going to touch on that. Now, the other thing is, if you look at your telemetry, if you do discovery on an ELRS radio system, and you see two sensors come in, one that says 1 RSS and the other that says 2 RSS, and the one has numbers, but the 2 doesn't, it's not because your radio is broke. That's not the problem. The problem is that 1 RSS is used if you have a single antenna system, like a Happy Model EP1, right? The 2 RSS is used if you have a dual antenna system. So if you see 0 for 2 RSS, don't sweat it. You're not broken. Now, the metaphor that they used on the Express LRS website, which I think is perfect, it can't really be explained any better than this, is imagine sitting in a room talking with someone, just like we're doing, right? I'm talking, you hear me, we're together in a room, you hear me. So the audio level is the RSSI. Now, when you start adding space or obstructions or obstacles, the RSSI decreases and you'll finally get to a point where the signal is no longer discernible. You won't be able to make out the signal. This is the sensitivity level. This is, remember I told you we defined this. Once that signal is no longer discernible, that is your sensitivity level. And sensitivity level varies with things like packet rate and power output and things like that. So we're going to go off the packet rate sensitivity level because that's where the way they define it with Express LRS. So another important, very, very important concept is as you fly outbound, your RSSI should steadily decrease as you fly outbound. Now for line of sight guys, what that means is your RSSI probably follows the circular pattern. It's going to go up, it's going to go down. It's going to go up, it's going to go down. So if you're flying at an AMA field in a pattern like that, that's what you'd expect to see. Okay. So that's RSSI. That's the basic rules of the road for RSSI. Next up is why RSSI matters. So here's the deal. It's easy to look at this tech, and there's a lot of advice out there, tons of it. It's easy to look at this tech and say, well, all you need is RSSI, or all you need is RQLI, or all you need is LQ. So which one do you do? The reality is that if you can combine link quality and RSSI, that's the best answer. Now, here's why RSSI matters. It's important because as it trends, that's the important phrase that you want to get through the mind here, is about the concept of trending. As your RSSI trends downward, it gives you an idea of where you are in terms of controllable range. So as you fly farther and farther away, your RSSI decreases and decreases and decreases. Okay. So the idea is that you get a trend. You start to say, if I start out and I'm flying, and right now I've got 13 dB on my radio. So as I start flying away, and that goes lower to -20, -22, -28, -30, you start to see this trend, right? And as it trends away, that helps you develop a sense of how far you can go. You watch that RSSI value decrease. All right. So as your distance increases, RSSI decreases. The important thing is to know what your sensitivity level is. And that's something that we really need to talk about. This is the part that I said you're probably doing it wrong. You have to know what the sensitivity level is and what your radio and OSD are reporting the correct values. Okay. So we're going to get into that. Hang tight. Next up is link quality. So link quality is represented as a percentage. It's not dBm or dBi or anything else, percent. And all it does is tell you how many packets are understood compared to how many packets you've received. We use receiver RQLY, or RQLY is receiver link quality. You want that one because that indicates what's happening, or it represents the link quality actually on the receiver. So there is another option called TQLY. That's not the one you want. That's transmitter, and that is reference to telemetry. We're interested in RQLY. That's the number you use. So let's go back to our example that we had earlier of sitting in a room having a conversation. So if someone blows a horn in the middle of that sentence, you're going to miss words. So imagine we're having this conversation. Someone comes in and blows an air horn in your ear. That doesn't change my volume, right? So your RSSI is the same. That hasn't changed, but you are going to miss words. That means you dropped a packet. In network parlance, that's what we mean. We drop a packet. So the speaker's volume didn't change. The RSSI is the same. It hasn't changed, but the LQ is lower because you missed a word, right? You missed a packet. The packet was there, but you missed it because the air horn blew you out. All right. That's link quality. So link quality is not a trendy thing. It's something that happens. You get disturbances or perturbances that kind of interfere, right? That's link quality. So here's why link quality is important. It's important because it informs how much the receiver understands, which has a very direct impact on the controllability of your model. So if you have an RSSI of, say, -10 or -20, which is solid, right? It's really good, but you have a link quality of 0, that means the receiver can hear everything. It knows about the packets, but it's dropping everything because there's too much interference, right? There's something impacting the ability of the receiver to understand, like a lot of noise in the area. So the reason all of the signal strength in the world doesn't matter. You could have all the RSI in the world. It doesn't matter if the RX can't understand it. So the problem is that LQ doesn't offer information about how much distance you can put between the RX and TX. It's simply a snapshot in time telling you, hey, here's what I understand, right? This is a snapshot of what I understand in terms of data coming in. So that's why link quality is important. Now here is the magic formula, right? You can either do RSSI or LQ or both. And the best option is to do both. Here's why you need both. With RSSI, you get to know how loud the signal is, but not how much is understood. So you could have a perfectly strong signal strength, but if you're getting swamped on the receiver and you don't get link quality, you don't know that. That's why RSSI by itself is not a great metric, right? By itself, it's not the best, because if you are suffering from interference, you won't know that. With link quality, you know how much information is understood, but you don't have any idea how much longer the receiver will be able to hear it. So the problem with link quality by itself is that as you approach your RSSI range, if you approach that sensitivity limit and you have 100% link quality, meaning the receiver says, yep, I got it, and I understand everything I've got. It means there's no noise in the system, there's no interference. What can happen is if you don't know your RSSI, you could suddenly be out of control, even though you had fantastic link quality the whole time. It's possible, right? That's the idea. So using LQ and RSSI for alerts gives you an idea of when your receiver will not be able to hear the TX, because as you watch that trend line, that RSSI trend line decrease, you'll get an idea of when you won't be able to hear the TX any longer. And then the other part, the other half of that shoe to drop is whether or not your RX understands the data it does receive. Okay, so that's why both is the best answer. You really want to try and get both. All right, now here's the hard part, and here's where it starts to get a little screwy, because this is the part where if you go out there and start reading the internet and reading the forums and listening to all the advice out there, it's going to get screwy. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to give you the information you need to make your own choices. That's what I'm going to do. There's a lot of people out there who are going to say, oh, don't ever run it below this, or don't ever run it below that. That's all a bunch of horse hockey. That's the way I see it. So let me explain the boundaries. First off, Express LRS specifies the maximum theoretical dBm for each packet rate. So there's a table. I'm going to show you the table. They specify the max theoretical dBm for each packet rate. The challenge with this is you can use different packet rates for different models. So if you've ever configured an Express LRS radio, you know that you can change the packet rate. So you can't set up logic in your radio that says, tell me when I hit 90 or tell me when I hit 80, if you want to be the most accurate, right? So that's the point. There is no single most accurate number, because the packet rates change, which means your sensitivity changes, which means you have different RSSI thresholds. Hopefully that makes sense. I'll show you what it means in a minute. We're getting there. Next up is for LQ range. This is my favorite one because everybody has a point of view, and because we have Crossfire and Tracer and Express LRS and everybody else out there, you'll go out there and read, and what you're going to find is some people say 90, some people say 70, some people say 60. It literally is all over the place. Now, I got this straight from the guys who work on Express LRS. The quote, 50/20 is fine. That's what they use. Now, he didn't give that as guidance and say this is what you should use. He said it's fine. It's what I use. So I figure if the guy that's kind of working really hard on writing the code says I use 50/20, that's probably a pretty safe place to be. But not only are we going to make that assumption or a leap of faith, I'm also going to show you why it matters. He also pointed out that you can still fly down to 1. So if you had a leak quality of 1, you can still fly. So let's get into these two statements, right? They're very important statements. Let's get into them just a little bit. It's time to talk about packet rates. So on Express LRS, there are 13 different what they call RF modes. And this graphic may be a little difficult to see, but what I'll point out is that up here at number 13, on Express LRS 3.0, we have F1000 at the high end, and then all the way down here at the bottom, we have 25 hertz. So the 13 different steps or RF modes ranging from 1,000 down to 25. Okay, I got a radio talking to me or something. All right, so let's get into the math of the link quality, okay? Let's assume for a second, and I picked 333, and the reason I picked 333 is because that is you can use that for 8-channel, or you can use it for 16 divided by 2. So at 333 hertz packet rate, you get basically 333 updates per second. So if you have a link quality of 100%, that means here's the math part, okay? This is the part that I said I was going to show you how to figure it out for yourself, right? And this you'll figure it out and make your own choice. If you have a link quality of 100%, that means your receiver is seeing and understanding. Remember, link quality is how much it hears and can process, right? 333 updates per second. Think about that. If you think your fingers are faster than 333 motions per second, yeah, you're pretty quick, right? If you have a link quality of 50, that means your receiver sees and understands 166 updates per second. Now think about that for a minute. If you have analog servos, they're probably running at 50 hertz, which means that at 50% link quality, you still are shoveling 3 times the amount of data toward the servo than the servo can actually physically process. All right, so that's where this whole concept of it link quality at 50% will still fly the plane or the model, because if you're using, say, an analog servo, you're still at 3 times the refresh rate of the servo. So it doesn't matter. Sure, you might be dropping packets, and that may not be awesome. You may have some interference out there, but you're still sending more updates per second than the servo can actually process. A link quality of 10 means your receiver sees and understands 33 updates per second. All right, so here's the question. That's why I told you I wasn't going to tell you what to do. I was going to show you how to figure out the math on your own. But ask yourself this question. What do you believe happens to control of your model if it only sees 33 updates per second, which is only what? 15, 20 below, the 22 below the refresh rate of a standard servo, right? 17 below, whatever the math is. It's not 33 updates per second is more than adequate for your control system if you're using analog. Now, if you're using digital servos or a flight computer, that changes the equation a little bit, but you can start to see now why people might struggle with this concept of link quality and why running it at 50% is not as devastating as it may seem on the surface. And that's probably why we get the guidance that 50% is actually okay. It'll fly okay. So for reference, I just wanted to put the reference out for Immersion Ghost. Their high end is 22.22 hertz, 222.22 hertz. That's pure race. I use the reference for 333 hertz on Express LRS, which is what, 111 hertz faster than their pure race on Ghost. 166 hertz is race, 62 is normal, 15 hertz is long range. That means 15 updates a second. So that's what they consider long range normal. On TBS Tracer, they've got a 250 hertz uplink and downlink, and they recommend configuring their warning level to 50%. This came straight out of their book. That came right out of their book. All right, let's do one more. So here's a 100 hertz packet rate. At 100 updates per second, a link quality of 100 gives you 100 packets received and understood. This is simple math, right? At link quality of 50%, that means your receiver or your servo is seeing 50 updates per second, and a link quality of 10 is 5 packets. So what do you think happens to the control of your model if it only sees 5 updates per second? Think about that. Think about moving your sticks at a rate of 5 motions per second, right? It's impossible. That's why link quality at these numbers is not devastating, and why the developers say, look, if you have a link quality of 1, you can still control the model, right? Because that means you're getting 1 update per second, which is still pretty quick. I don't really move my sticks that fast. All right, so that's it. That's all I wanted to show you on this part, right? I didn't want to go in and say, here's what you should do. What I wanted to do is show you how to do the math and how to figure it out for yourself. And you can make your own choices, right? And do the experimentation, right? Put the model on the plane and lower your refresh rate down to 100 and see what happens. Try it out. But the reality is, I think you'd be surprised why some people say 90 or 80 is, mandatory, when in reality, you're getting a whole lot of updates, even at 50% link quality on 100 hertz packet rate, okay? Okay. Yeah, it's 10. Sorry, typo. Good catch, Chris. Yeah, it's 10. 10 packets per second. My fault. My bad. Okay, on the EdgeTX telemetry page, let's talk about that, because we have to get into this. Yeah, not 5. I got it, guys. Sorry for the typo. Let's go ahead and fix it. No, I can't fix it in here. It's going to break everything. Yeah, it's 10. Sorry for the typo. All right, now let's talk about how to set up EdgeTX. So in EdgeTX telemetry, on the EdgeTX telemetry page, I'm going to show you guys this. The warning range uses sensors specified by the protocol. FreeSky protocol is defaulted to 42 to 45, which is the default. So a lot of you guys are out there running, and this is why I said you're probably doing it wrong. A lot of you guys are out there probably running 42 to 25 as your default values on your radios on protocols that have nothing to do with the range of 42 to 45, because I found out from the Edge guys that those values that they used are rescaled RSSI values. So the reality is you really don't know. That 42 to 45 range, that's applicable and it's fine for free sky stuff. But outside of free sky stuff, you really need to understand what the sensor that's being used for link quality is coming back to you with. So 42 to 45 is the default when you create a model, and it is not applicable to ELRS or most other protocols that you're probably using. So the reason I brought this up is because I can't tell you how many times I've seen people get into forums or on a channel and say, why is it that when I plug in my DSM, I get telemetry errors right out of the gate? It's probably because they don't understand, number one, what sensor is being used, nor do they understand what range to use. This was the surprise to me when I found out that it's the protocol that specifies the sensor that's being used. In the case of Express LRS, and I've got this confirmed both from the Edge team and the Express LRS team, that the telemetry alerts on the telemetry page are based on RQLY. Yes, they are. Don't argue that they are. I confirmed it multiple times. So we're going to get into that in just a second. Now, regarding how to set up EdgeTX, there's 3 different approaches we're going to take. I'm going to show you. All right. The basic one, this is for the folks who say, you know what, I trust Express LRS. I'm not too concerned about it. I know it's fire and forget. I'm good with the tech. Go ahead and go into your telemetry page, set your alert to 50 and your critical to 20, go fly. You're done. Go fly. Rely on link quality. You're probably good to go. Just go do it. And let me flip over to the big camera so we can show you what that looks like. So all you have to do is click on your model. Oops, I long pressed. Click on your model and then go over here to telemetry. And this is the page we're talking about. You want to go ahead and set that to 50 and 20 and then don't check disable, turn that back on, and there you go. You're good to go. So if you're happy with Express LRS, you trust the tech and you don't really need to inspect any further, that's all you really need to do. And what'll happen in Express LRS world is you're going to get a link quality update that says, when you hit 50%, give me an alarm. When you hit 20%, be persistent. That's all that's going to happen. Okay, so that's option number 1. That's the simplest setup, and you can use this to go fly, right? You're not going to have any real problems if you do it this way. I think for the people who are very comfortable with the tech and they don't need to babysit, or they're not too interested in doing deep packet inspection on what's going on, this is a fine way to go. Okay. The next option is an intermediate option. And in this one, what we're going to do is we're going to use that LQ alert 50 and 20, but we're also going to use a logical switch for RSSI. So what we're going to do in this one, and I don't actually have it on the radio, but it's super simple to understand this. And if you're still watching, I'm sure you can make this up, right? So all you do is set that same 50 and 20 threshold on your telemetry page, and then create yourself a logical switch that says when RSSI is lower than -90, let's go ahead and activate. So put that on logical 1, and then create a special function for logical 1 to play a sound. Well, you can create alarm 1S and hit enable. So there you go. Now what you've got is you've got 2 different discrete conditions that will say, hey, if my link quality is 50, let me know. If it drops down to 20, really let me know. And if my RSSI drops below 90, let me know that as well. Now, 90, the reason I say this is intermediate is because 90, remember I told you at the beginning that a lot of the ELRS packet rate DBM sensitivity levels are close to 100. I use 90 just because it's kind of on average. It gives you 10 dBm of padding from the floor for most of the sensitivity levels on most of the packet rates. That's why I use 90 in this example. And because I consulted with the Express LRS guys and they gave me 90 as the example. All right, that's probably okay. So with that in mind, the next thing you do is create your special function, play an alarm, and there you go. That's your intermediate setup. It's very basic. And if I were setting up my planes, my fleet, right, all my planes, that's probably the one I would go with, okay? Now, there's an advanced setup that I came up with, of course, because, you know, it's me and it's RC Video Reviews, and we do a lot of edge configurations. And I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to really look hard at it and examine, you know, what's going on. So we'll cover that now. And what we'll do, oops, wrong screen. We'll cover that. Here we go. So what I did is I used their table, and this was also a tip that I got from the Express LRS guys. So when you look at their RF mode table, I only used like 5 of the 13. I didn't use all of them. You can use all of them if you want. Now, the reason I put this together like this is because I was really looking at the packet rates that I would probably most likely use. So the idea in this arrangement that I created was that you can fly anything, a quad, a plane, a helicopter, you know, whatever you happen to be flying. And the RF mode you'll see in that center column right here, this 987, this row right here, this column, those are RF modes in the table specified by Express LRS. And for each RF mode, there's a rate and there's a sensitivity limit. See this negative 105 right here? That's the sensitivity limit for the rate of 500. So I set up a logical switch L20, and I said that's the rate of 500. That one's RF mode number 9 and a sensitivity level of negative 105. When I use my padding, the padding number is negative 95. This will all make sense just a moment. As soon as you see the config, you'll understand it, okay? The next one, and I put a star next to these because these are full rate. So L21, I use 333 full. That RF mode is number 8. It has a sensitivity level of negative 105, and my warning level is negative 95. Okay, so we'll do that all the way down through these logical switches. And then the next thing we're going to do is if we have a RSS value below our global variable, which I'll show you momentarily, and that hangs for 5 seconds, that triggers number 26. And then 27 simply says, hey, if 26 goes off and my ARC quality, my receiver quality is down below 20, I really want to know that. So this is the L27 is what you call the brown pants moment, right? That's what that one is. That's the whole, oh, you really got a problem. And then I'll show you the special functions, how we set global variables so we can apply these warning levels. I'll show you that. And then we'll set up special functions to play a sound. Okay, so this is the advanced configuration if you really want to do some inspection. So let's go ahead and flip over to the big radio, or the big camera rather, and I'm going to show you this setup. Okay, so let's see. First off, we're going to go over to logical switches, and we started on number 20. So this should look familiar. Had to get my pointer out. This should look familiar to you. And what it said, all this says is logical 20 says if A equals X, RF mode. Now, RF mode is a telemetry sensor. We get that on telemetry. And I'll go ahead and scoot over there and let you see it. Here's the telemetry sensor. And you can see my RF mode right now is 8. That's 333 hertz. So if the RF mode is 8 or 333 hertz, what that's doing is saying if RF mode is 8, A equals X, go ahead and light logical 21. And you can see that's why logical 21 is lit, because my RF mode is 8. And we do that for every one of the packet rates you find interesting. So all I did here is create logical switches that light up based on the RF mode. The ones that I found interesting were 9, 8, 7, 5, 4, and 2. Okay? That's it. That's all you got to do. Now, the next thing, 26, remember that one is if my RSS is below my global variable. I'm going to show you the global variable in a second. But if it's below that for 5 seconds, I want that lit. And then 27, I talked about this. This combines the two. It says if our quality is at 20% and 26 is lit, that's the brown pants moment. All right, so we'll come back to that in just a second. Let's take a look at the special functions. I'm going to scroll down and show you those. So special function 20 says when logical 20 is active, that's the first one, that's the rate of 500 with RF mode 9, we want to make an adjustment. We're going to use negative 95. See this negative 95? That's that warning level that I showed you on the other slide. Let me go back to that. All right, so for RF mode number 9 right here, let me see if I got it. There we go. RF mode number 9 right here, the warning level is negative 95. Remember that? So negative 95 is the padded value from the specified signal sensitivity level of the packet rate 500 hertz. Okay? So we'll go back over to the big camera, and all we're doing here is saying if we're at RF mode number 9, I want to go ahead and adjust GV3. So I use GV3. You can use any GV you want. And I set it to my sensitivity level, negative 95. Okay? Now, I did the same thing with all the rest of these. So RF mode number 8, remember that one? That was, that's 333 hertz full. That's logical switch number 21. So that one set my GV number 3 to 95. Okay? Number L22, that's the 250 hertz rate. That's RF mode number 7. That would set it to 98. So I'm going to pick one. I'm going to go ahead and go down to, let's see, I'm going to do 150, or sorry, I'm going to do 100 full. Okay, so L24, right there, that will adjust my GV number 3 to negative 102. Okay, so I'm going to show you GV number 3 because I have it on this screen. See, GV number 3 right now is set at 95. That's because I have it set at RF mode number 8. Now what I'm going to do is go into the system menu on Express LRS, and I'm going to change it down to 100 full. Now, when I do that, watch what happens. Watch what happens to the GV value, right? It's going to change to negative 102. So I'll back out, and you see how GV3 is changed to 102? What this is doing is based on what settings you use for packet rate in Express LRS, it is applying a value to global variable number 3 that is a 10 dBm improvement over the sensitivity limit specified in the table. Okay, that's a little complex, and don't worry, come back and watch the video again, but you'll get the idea. So let me go ahead and make another change. So I'm going to do 150 hertz. Now the warning level for this one, the sensitivity level for 150 is negative 112, and that means the warning level needs to be negative 102. So I'm going to set it to negative 150, and then if we back out, GV3 now should be 102. So I'll back out, and there we go. It's 102. Now if I go in and do 250 hertz, for example, 250 has a sensitivity level of 108. That means it should be 98. So if I click 250 and back out, we should go back and see the sensitivity level being negative 98. Okay, so now we can use that information, right? Now we've got an RSSI floor written to a GV that we can actually use. So I'll click on model, and we'll go back into the special functions and let you see. I'm stuck. Why am I stuck? There we go. Okay, so we'll go back into the special functions, we'll let you see what happens. So we make the adjustment, right? All we're doing is using these special functions to adjust our global variable. And then we're back to logical 26 and 27. So let's go back and look at 26 and 27. Real simple, right? 26 says, remember, if RSSI is less than GV3, remember GV3 is always going to be the right dB floor, right? It's always going to be the right one with 10 dBm of padding. If one RSS is less than GV3 for 5 seconds, go ahead and light 26. And then 27 says, if 26 is lit and my link quality is below 20, you go ahead and light as well. And then from there, we just set our alarms. Okay, so that's it. That's the logic. And I know that was a lot. I told you it was going to be advanced, right? I told you it's going to be advanced, and you probably don't need to go to that level, right? You probably don't need to. But if you want to inspect it and check it out, if you want to be precise, you know, and have a prescriptive dB warning level based on RSSI, you can do it now, right? You have an idea on how you can do it. So we'll go back to the blackboard, and we're going to round third and head for home. We got some wrap-up power to do. I wanted to talk a little bit about dynamic power because it's a curveball. Dynamic power kind of changes the game a little bit, and the reason is because when things start getting sideways, the radio has the ability with Express LRS to say, oh, we need a little more power, no problem. And it turns up the volume. So that kind of screws up everything, right? It's in a good way. It's a good way, but it changes things. So here are the events that will cause a change in power. And I do have to warn that one of the numbers I have in here is an estimate. I'm not 100% clear. Maybe Captain Bry's on it. Maybe he can help us out and confirm. But so here are the events that will trigger a dynamic power change, right? If you have a link quality of 50% received by the TX, power jumps to max. So if your link quality drops to 50%, your power is going to shoot up to max. If your LQ drops suddenly in a single telemetry update compared to the moving average, power jumps to max. Right? That makes sense. So for example, if your LQ is sitting there at 100%, everything's cool, and all of a sudden it gets a 80% LQ hit on telemetry, the radio automatically increases its power to max. Number 3, the third event, is if telemetry is lost entirely with the arm switch in the high, or at any time the TX is disconnected while armed, power jumps to max. Makes sense. You know, so it's basically saying, wait, where'd the radio go? I lost my receiver. What the hell? It'll increase power to max. So it makes sense to me that they did it that way. For dynamic power, here are some other notes about dynamic power, and these are based on 3.0. Okay, so in 3.0, they're using the signal to noise ratio instead of RSSI to determine the power, as RSSI doesn't factor the noise floor or if the RX has an amplifier. Also, apparently, signal to noise ratio reacts faster because it only needs one telemetry update to make a decision. And the SNR will lower power if swamping. And I get that all the time on radios, all the time. I put a radio next to a plane and I get, telemetry lost. It's because of swamping. So if signal noise ratio gets a little crazy, they'll bring the power back down. All right. And then the last one, these are the ones that I'm not 100% sure on. I wrote estimated at the bottom, and I said changes to dynamic power of the Express LRS 3.0. Lowering power occurs if RSSI average is higher than about 30 dBm above the sensitivity level. I just did that based on the math. The example they gave was 73 to 105. So I said, okay, it sounds like they're triggering a lower power if the averages, the recent averages, are about 30 dBm above the sensitivity level. They're lowering power. On the other side, they'll raise power, again, an estimate, if RSSI average is lower than about 15 dBm above the sensitivity level. Maybe Captain Bry or one of the other guys can confirm that. That's just what I saw in the book. So that's it. That's it. That's the material for the night. And I'm going to go back to the big camera, and I'm going to scroll back and check questions and see if there's anything I can answer for you guys, and then we can wrap it up. But I wanted to put that together just to give you guys kind of a primer on how these things stitch together, and to give you an idea of when you're out there, if you're utilizing the telemetry information available on the radio, how you might want to go about configuring EdgeTX so it's actually configured correctly. Okay. All right. So 10%. Yeah, the 10%. Sorry about the error on the math. It's late. You know, I put it all together pretty quick. Let's see. Hobie, YouTube stars math is per. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Hobie. I appreciate that. How do people connect their radios so the laptop will flying? Yeah, I don't know. 39 watching. Robert hit the like whip. Thanks for doing that, Robert. Terminal, that would be it. Telemetry module. Mavlink, maybe, right? NM Desert Razor, VGA cable. Okay, we're talking about radios to computers. Let's see. North 49. Could you build a black box for radio outputs and radio to the SD? Okay. Later, all Hobie took off. All right, I think that's it. Wow, that must have been very thorough. Oh, here's a question. What would cause a 500 milliwatt module to be limited to 250 milliwatts? Don't know. I think I got it on the first go, and John said no whenever I'm going to have watched this a few times. I don't know, Terminal Insanity, what would cause a 500 milliwatt module to be limited to 250 milliwatts. I'm not sure about that. I saw when I was fiddling around, sure you're not talking about packet rate? I was fiddling around with packet rate when I first started getting back into Express LRS, and I couldn't change from, say, 250 hertz to 500 hertz because the baud rate wasn't high enough. So make sure your baud rate's at least 400K or higher, and I think you'll be able to change your packet rate if that's what your actual question is. All right, guys. Well, listen, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I think I'm going to wrap it up. I hope you found this information useful, and it'll help you configure your radio correctly for EdgeTX, and so you can get the right kind of alerts and the right ranges for your radio. And if nothing else, maybe you got some information about how to figure out where you want your link quality to be rather than just going out and reading websites who aren't using the same equipment as you. Now you've got some tools, you got the ability to do a little bit of math and kind of figure out what exactly is going on. So hopefully that will be helpful to you. And if you like this kind of content, make sure you hit that notification bell and the subscription button so you know when new videos hit the channel. That's all I've got for today. Take it easy.